What did Buddha say about vegetarianism that even scientists bow to? Welcome back, everyone, to Mind Podcast. Are you truly understanding vegetarianism? Are you following Buddha's teachings on how to be vegetarian correctly? We received some interesting comments like this. I occasionally visit the Gyakduk vegetarian restaurant on Winding Trio Street, where I noticed monks and nuns ordering from the reception pork belly, roasted beef, sliced fried chicken legs, and breaded anchovies. Listening to these practitioners of strict precepts call for mock meat dishes just seemed too odd. Vegetarianism is voluntary, so why the need to hide behind mock meat dishes? I think being vegetarian means turning away from meat and ceasing all killing, nurturing compassion, and following Buddha's example. Yet why does vegetarianism sometimes carry a longing for meat? And then some say, eating meat and speaking truth is better than being vegetarian and lying. Thus, they believe as long as there's a compassionate heart, whether one eats meat or not doesn't matter. Others wonder if eggs and milk are considered vegetarian. From the audience's comments, we see there are still many differing views on this issue. So today, let's clarify Buddha's teachings on vegetarianism. In everyday understanding, vegetarianism means consuming pure foods without meat, fish, or the pungent substances in the 5 pungent spices group, such as onions, chives, garlic, scallions, and leeks. If one consumes meat, fish, and these spices, it's called eating meat. However, the original word chai, vegetarian, means purity. It also refers to time-based eating, meaning eating before noon, as eating after noon is considered improper. In early Buddhism and sectarian Buddhism, time-based eating meant a meal before noon. In the development of Mahayana Buddhism, stemming from compassion and non-harming, vegetarianism evolved to mean not consuming meat. Nowadays, being vegetarian refers to this interpretation. The opposite of being vegetarian is a term that doesn't mean salty, but rather points to consuming the lives of animals. Over time, this term has shifted in pronunciation and interpretation, now known as eating salty, but actually means eating lives. Sentient beings feel uncomfortable. In scientific terms, vegetarians and vegans are categorized differently. Vegetarian refers to individuals who abstain from eating the meat of animals. They define meat as the flesh of sentient beings capable of feeling and moving independently, meaning animals that can walk, crawl, wriggle, fly, and swim. However, vegetarians may still consume eggs and drink milk. Vegan, on the other hand, refers to vegetarians who do not consume eggs, milk, or dairy products such as butter and cheese. In summary, vegans avoid any products derived from animal bodies. Some may ask if the purpose of vegetarianism in Buddhism aligns with the scientific rationale for vegetarianism. It is clear that the purpose of vegetarianism in Buddhism differs from the scientific view. The purpose of Buddhist vegetarianism is to respect and protect life. Respecting life is a core principle in Buddhism, and the precept of non-killing is intended to protect that life. For Buddhists, vegetarianism is a practical expression of this principle. A Buddhist high monk once taught that killing one life to sustain another is delusion. Harming life for one's own survival is ignorance. Thus, respecting life involves not only helping each other to survive, but sometimes even sacrificing one's life to protect other lives. Buddhism emphasizes and upholds the principle of altruism, directing all actions toward the respect for life. In Mahayana Buddhism, vegetarianism is mandatory for each Buddhist practitioner. However, many followers of Theravada Buddhism believe that vegetarianism is not essential for Buddhists. Firstly, if Buddha had considered non-meat foods suitable according to the precepts, he would have declared it, and this would have at least been recorded in the Pali Canon. However, we do not see any such mention. Secondly, unless we directly kill an animal to consume its meat, we are not directly responsible for its death. With this understanding, there is no essential difference between vegetarians and non-vegetarians. Even vegetarians consume plant-based foods that farmers cultivate, often harming countless organisms, and pesticides are sprayed, killing even more beings. Thirdly, even though vegetarians may avoid eating meat, they still use numerous other products that lead to animal slaughter, such as silk, leather, serums, silk thread, etc. Why not avoid one product if others are still being used? Fourthly, virtues like compassion, patience, generosity, and honesty, as well as negative qualities such as ignorance, pride, hypocrisy, envy, and indifference, do not depend on what we put into our mouths. Thus, food is not the main factor in spiritual development. Buddhists who do not follow a vegetarian diet, including both laypeople and monks, often refer to the Jivaka Sutra, where the Buddha stated that he forbids eating meat only in 3 specific cases: if it is seen, heard, or suspected that the animal was killed for one's consumption. Otherwise, one may eat meat if there is no sight, sound, or suspicion that the animal was slaughtered for them. This group argues that if a person did not kill the animal themselves, it means there was no intention to kill, so eating that meat poses no problem. Although death occurs, they claim that meat eaters do not generate killing karma. They are entirely uninvolved in the killing itself. They argue that most people do not consume meat with an intention to harm, but rather out of habit from childhood, as part of their culture, because they know how to cook and eat it in a way that suits them. Thus, they believe taste preferences and cultural influences are shaped by upbringing. If you're accustomed to a certain food, you'll feel comfortable consuming it. That's why many Australians, for instance, aren't vegetarian. They eat meat because it's part of their cultural familiarity and culinary tradition. However, vegetarian Buddhists counter this by citing verses 129 and 130 from the Dhammapada, which clearly state that we should neither kill nor cause killing. They refer to several scriptures in the original Pali Canon, where the Buddha's teachings discourage killing, encouraging others to avoid it and abstain from accepting acts of killing. They argue that even purchasing meat or meat-based products makes one complicit as it creates demand, indirectly causing others to slaughter animals. Animals like cows, goats, pigs, and chickens are killed in slaughterhouses specifically to satisfy meat eaters. If no one consumed meat, these animals would not be killed. They argue that it is unfair for us to create a situation where butchers are sent to hell due to our culinary enjoyment. If everyone agreed to be vegetarian, those who currently slaughter animals for profit would have to shift to more positive, blessed professions, leading the world toward peace and harmony. By continuing to consume animals, we perpetuate a profession based on killing. Pitifully, they also quote a teaching from a modern High Buddhist monk, Venerable Tit Chi Tin, who speaks about vegetarianism as follows: "We should know that if we want to eat meat, it involves killing. Even if we do not kill the animal ourselves, we encourage someone else to do so. Eating meat is thus the cause of the slaughter of living beings. All kinds of meat, whether pork, beef, shrimp, or shellfish, which belong to the animal realm, should not be consumed. Some argue that shellfish and shrimp, for example, do not have blood and are therefore acceptable to eat. Others say that an unformed egg is harmless and can be eaten because it doesn't feel pain. However, upon closer examination, we see that these foods belong to the animal realm and should not be eaten at all. Even though shrimp and shellfish lack blood, they still have a will to live and a fear of death. A snail will retract into its shell at a sound, and a shrimp will jump away when touched, showing they have awareness and fear, just like us. As for eggs, some argue that since an egg has not yet developed into a creature, there is no sin in eating it. By that logic, if a fetus of 1 or 2 months in the womb is aborted, would there be no sin since it hasn't taken shape yet? If we consider abortion to be sinful, then eating eggs must also be sinful, as an egg, given the right conditions, would become a chicken or some other animal. We've just presented arguments from both sides regarding meat consumption. This raises the question, did Buddha accept meat eating? In the Jivaka Sutra, Buddha allowed the consumption of 3 types of meat under specific conditions, if it was not seen, heard, or suspected that the animal was killed specifically for one's consumption. Additionally, Buddha permitted the consumption of meat from animals that had died naturally or had been left over after being caught and killed by other animals. In other sutras, however, Buddha explicitly prohibited his followers from engaging in bloody trades or occupations involving slaughterhouses, hunting, fishing, and animal trapping. Why the apparent contradiction? Non-vegetarian Buddhists claim that the Jivaka Sutra allows them to eat meat and interpret it to mean that Buddha indirectly approved of slaughterhouses. They argue that meat produced in slaughterhouses, typically located far from populated areas, is now sold in supermarkets. Therefore, buyers neither hear the cries nor see the suffering of animals, nor do they suspect that the animals were killed specifically for them, meeting the three conditions Buddha mentioned. However, it must be noted that Buddha prohibited Buddhists from working in slaughterhouses due to his emphasis on compassion. While Buddha forbade blood-soaked professions such as slaughterhouses, hunting, fishing, and trapping, he seemingly allowed monks and Buddhists to consume meat if the animal was not killed explicitly for them, creating an illogical contradiction. Who else but meat-eaters bears responsibility for the killings in slaughterhouses, hunting, and fishing industries? The butchers are merely performing a service for meat-eaters. "Sir, I am only doing the dirty work for you," a butcher once said to an upper-class person who criticized the cruelty of slaughtering innocent animals. Whether or not animals are killed specifically for them, meat-eaters indirectly support the meat industry and contribute to the brutality and killing of sentient beings. Could it be that Buddha, described as the all-knowing, one whose wisdom and compassion encompass the universe, was unaware of or insensitive to the fact that simply abstaining from meat could effectively end the suffering and horrors inflicted upon weak, silent animals? Every Buddhist knows that Buddha was extremely compassionate and valued life immensely. For example, he emphasized that monks must observe a 3-month rainy season retreat without venturing outside to avoid stepping on insects that breed during the rainy season. Therefore, it is hard to believe that he could be indifferent to the pain and suffering of livestock killed for food. What is the real reason? We will find the answer at the end of the video. Next, let's look at a controversial question in Buddhist history that has sparked much debate. Did Buddha pass away because he ate pork? This question has led some monks to justify their own consumption of meat. Many claim that Buddha ate a bowl of pork soup at a disciple's house to avoid offending the donor by refusing the offering. However, most Buddhist scholars believe that the food offered to Buddha was not meat and that Buddha's death was not caused by it. All Mahayana sutras strictly oppose meat consumption. According to Buddhist scholar R. David, the food that the layperson Kunda offered Buddha was mushrooms. David argues that the term Sukara Madhava combines Sukara, meaning pig, and Madhava, meaning delicious, or food that wild boars like to eat. Western scholars translate it as a type of valuable mushroom. Sukara Madhava has 4 meanings. First, it is a type of food pigs eat. Second, it is food that pigs particularly enjoy. Third, it refers to soft parts of a pig's body. And fourth, it is food that has been trampled by a pig. Kunda, a devout disciple of Buddha, would not likely offer him a bowl of pork soup, knowing that Buddha abstained from meat. It is also likely that Kunda himself did not consume meat, like many Indians of that time. Would he then offer meat to Buddha, someone deeply sensitive to the suffering of sentient beings? Buddha refused to drink cow's milk in the first 10 days after a cow gives birth, and he declined an offering of fruit that had ants living on it. He even instructed the monastic community to stay indoors during the 3-month rainy season retreat, to avoid stepping on insects breeding in the rain. There is one aspect of Buddha's final meal that we should note. According to the Digha Nikaya, after receiving the bowl of mushroom soup from Kunda, Buddha instructed him not to serve the remaining soup to the other monks. Kunda complied and withdrew. This suggests that Buddha did not consume meat. In summary, all Buddhists, regardless of tradition or school, share a common foundation. They respect and protect life and observe the precept of non-killing as a means to preserve that life. However, there are differences in how they practice this principle, which is understandable. These differences arise from the varied mindsets, capacities, and environments of sentient beings, as well as different spatial and temporal contexts. For example, the circumstances of Buddhists in Tibet differ from those of Vietnamese Buddhists, and they are even more distinct from Buddhists living in the United States. Even within Vietnam, monks in the south, following the Mahayana tradition, have different circumstances than some monks in the north from 1954 to 1975. Understanding these differing circumstances makes it easier to empathize and see that there is no problem. This context also helps explain why the Theravada scriptures lack a vegetarian precept and instead permit the consumption of 3 pure meat, meat from animals not seen, heard, or suspected to have been killed for oneself, while Mahayana scriptures have a precept prohibiting meat consumption. Buddha was a great healer, the king of physicians. Before he taught, he would observe his audience, assess their capacity to understand the teachings, and present suitable teachings to cure their mental afflictions. Thus, we understand that each of Buddha's words was directed toward a specific purpose for a particular audience, in a specific place or time, to resolve their difficulties. Only by understanding the circumstances of his listeners can we understand Buddha's statements, as he spoke with the intent to liberate sentient beings, using expedient means in his teachings. Buddha's teachings were always adapted to circumstances, which means that no single teaching can be universally right or wrong. It all depends on the time, place, and context, as well as the capacity of each audience. In the Nirvana Sutra, Buddha explained why he initially allowed monks to eat 3 types of pure meat. He said, Kashyapa, these 3 kinds of pure meat were permitted as a temporary measure, adjusted according to circumstances. In the early period of Buddhism, due to its revolutionary and liberating content aimed at dismantling India's rigid caste divisions and discrimination, various forces sought to undermine Buddha's reputation. Also, due to objective difficulties in the social environment, Buddha had to adapt his approach to promote and preserve the Dharma while ensuring its survival. In ancient times, simplicity in food was necessary for the practice, and food was regarded as medicinal. Therefore, Buddha's monks practiced alms begging, going house to house without distinction of wealth, so all could have the opportunity to practice generosity and accumulate merit. Alms begging not only countered attachment to self, but also benefited both the monks and the laity, allowing monks to avoid time spent buying and cooking food. They would mix all food offerings together, avoiding distinctions between dishes, good or bad taste, so that eating was only for bodily nourishment and spiritual practice. In the context of India 2,500 years ago, where the people were poor and Buddha's community was large, sometimes numbering over 1,000 monks during alms rounds, it was impractical to reject food offerings, which might cause resentment in generous donors. Accepting food offerings, even if they contained meat, was purely coincidental. The monks focused solely on sustenance to practice and attain enlightenment, and Buddha did not impose strict demands due to such difficult circumstances. Thanks to the non-killing precept established by Buddha, which gradually permeated the community, Buddhists stopped slaughtering animals, replacing animal-based food with plants and vegetables. Eventually, they would offer vegetables and fruits instead. We have presented various perspectives on vegetarianism and meat eating, recognizing that each person has unique views and capacities, and that no one can impose their beliefs on others. Differences should not be grounds for debate if we all respect each other's choices, as these differences stem from one's circumstances, environment, access to scriptures, karma, and individual lifestyle choices. One thing we can all agree on is that Buddhism is not a religion of blind faith. Buddha taught us not to believe in something just because it is tradition, a holy scripture, or the words of a teacher, but only to believe in what we have experienced, practiced, and found beneficial for ourselves and for all beings. Everything depends on our wisdom and compassion. We have the freedom to choose. Whether to be vegetarian or not is less important than choosing a meaningful lifestyle for oneself. May you succeed on your path of practice. This concludes today's video. Who am I? Who are we? The whole world should seek their supreme nature. Welcome back, everyone, to Mind Podcast. True spirituality helps us face daily life. Spirituality is not just practices like meditation, listening to high-frequency music, or hypnosis. Spirituality is simply the heart and soul. It's when you listen to your heart's guidance and immerse yourself in experiences that allow you to reflect on yourself in this diverse world. Awakening is not about opening chakras or achieving extraordinary spiritual powers. It's feeling a push for change and going with the flow of life. It's wanting to leave an unsatisfying job, end a hurtful relationship, pursue a dream many might call crazy, and having the courage to think and act on what feels right to you. That is spirituality. Awakening is the next natural phase of human development, an understanding of the essential nature of our being. This is not a mystical or religious experience limited to a few. It is available to everyone. What we truly are is already fully awakened, fully aware, and completely infinite. Your true essence is closer than you think. Whole, complete, peaceful. The next step in science, seeing consciousness as the foundation. Consciousness is the absolute reality of the universe. What is awakening? It is self-knowledge, self-awareness. Whatever term you use, true self, inherent self, Buddha nature, the way, or divine consciousness, it doesn't matter. In this video, we will call it mindfulness. Mindfulness is not a trait belonging to any religion. Awakening, or becoming aware, is like waking up from a dream. The dream of your character in the play of life. Through our heroes, we experience the world with all its beauty and ugliness, what we might call the duality of life and death. We obsess over the thoughts and emotions of characters, good and evil, war and peace, light and shadow, birth and death, until we awaken and realize we are not these characters in this movie. In this video, we invite you to experience your true essence directly, not through intellect. Who are you? We will repeat this invitation in various ways as you try to discover who you are. Let things be as they are. Do not use your mind to make something happen or search for an answer at the level of consciousness. Also, don't try to push the mind away. Simply experience who you are. Let the mind not know. Awakening as the answer to the world's problems. Awakening is the answer to all kinds of problems in the world. All these issues stem from an illusion. A fundamental illusion of the mind that believes, I am this limited character. When we live with a small, separate self, there is always a sense of dissatisfaction. This can be a profound dissatisfaction, like a psychological wound, or it might be just a vague feeling of discontent. In our lives, when we nurture the small, separate self, we experience ongoing frustration and dissatisfaction. But when we step into our true nature, we transcend these limitations and find peace. Embrace your true essence and allow the awakening to bring patience, hope, and a brighter, more harmonious future. Thank you for watching this video. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss upcoming videos. Wishing you peace and happiness. Is there something missing? Is something wrong? Am I missing something? Even when I feel some joy in achieving something in the world, even when I have a good relationship, if I pause for a moment, there is a lingering sense of dissatisfaction, as if I am isolated or cut off from something. This feeling, which almost everyone seems to experience, can lead us to awaken from this small, separate self. Its nature is a kind of anxiety about separation. This limited character tends to grasp at what it wants, a conditioned pattern of striving for what it desires or trying to push away what it doesn't want. One might say it's an endless process, a principle of pleasure, the pursuit of joy, and the avoidance of pain. If we believe that we are this conditioned personality, this pattern, then we suffer and create suffering in the world. The world becomes a reflection of this self-centered consciousness. The benefit of awakening is that you suffer less, and so do those around you. I have no doubt that my initial connection to understanding God was an awakening in my life, the greatest awakening I've ever experienced. I went about like a robot, doing things I was taught from a young age. I had a formula: get a car, get a job, buy a house, get married. To me, it seemed like this formula was what life was meant to be. Then, one day, I realized that although I had checked off many things on my list and achieved a measure of success in my career, those things didn't matter. I woke up and saw that all of it was meaningless, shocking me with its utter lack of significance. Everything was empty. Who are you when you stop following the script? Who are you when you stop following the script built into your character, inherited from your parents, society, and biological conditions? New dimensions appear in this game. A path opens up, but it reaches no destination. This is the unexplored path, the removal of illusions to arrive precisely at your current position. Understand that the peace and happiness we desire above all else can never be found in objective reality. These cannot be provided by material objects, achievements, or relationships. I encourage you to understand this and not waste the rest of your life seeking satisfaction where it cannot be found. This is the most important research you can undertake, and your happiness depends on it. The greatest question in my life, which I believe most people encounter at some point, is simply, what is the purpose? What is the meaning of life? I was amazed to learn that the meaning of life had nothing to do with what I had done. It wasn't about my job or my career. It wasn't about most things in my physical life. I realized my life's purpose was to experience, express, and understand who I truly am. The biggest question most people face is one they rarely ask or answer. Am I merely a physical entity, like a bird in the sky or a fish in the sea, perhaps a bit more complex but still just a physical being? Am I born, do I live, and do I die with a beginning and an end? Or could I be something more? Perhaps I am a spiritual being having a physical experience. All the experiences in your life have led you to this universal question. Who are you? Don't seek answers at the level of the mind. Let everything unfold exactly as it is. Who is it that is aware of the mind? Who feels everything that arises? Who is conscious of these emotions and senses what has emerged within? Are we robots? From a physical perspective, we are simply machines. From a spiritual perspective, we are not. But that alone does not define who we are. So I decided to question it from a scientific perspective. Are we machines? I wanted to understand what machines can do and what makes humans and human neuroscience unique. If science were purely materialistic, then consciousness would be considered merely a product of brain activity. The materialistic model that dominated the last century dismissed anything beyond the physical, anything unverified by scientific methods. Science hit a dead end, unable to overcome the fundamental paradox of quantum physics, which faces the observer with consciousness itself. Similarly, religions mostly operate on a level of faith, having lost their original purpose of leading to a direct experience of who we are and what we are. This division between science and spirituality has impoverished both fields. Religious and spiritual systems need rigorous methods to facilitate awakening, and science needs openness to the possibility of something beyond matter. This isn't about abandoning religion or science, but about diving deeper and being willing to change ourselves to become better tools of discovery. Religion is the language and repository of spiritual meditative traditions, written and passed down from generation to generation. Of course, language in a literal sense divides both religion and culture. But if you grasp the spirit of religion, you can follow the path toward true awakening. Every person has the potential to awaken, whether they believe it or not, because awakening is inherent in human consciousness. Thus, whatever you call it, and in whatever language, there are certain principles that seem universal across all religions and spiritual and meditative traditions. This wisdom was present in Eastern spiritual traditions and also existed in Western traditions, although it was often disguised and obscured to the point that it was almost inaccessible. As a result, this wisdom appeared exotic to the cultures it reached. Many, including myself, initially thought it required an extraordinary lifestyle, abandoning family life, shaving one's head, taking on a special name, finding a teacher, following a tradition, or engaging in unusual practices. But none of these external things relate to understanding. They are merely cultural aspects through which understanding is expressed. Now, this understanding has been entirely separated from traditional culture and is available in a way that allows us to continue living our lives as they are, with family, work, and friends, without needing any external changes. The illusion of duality and the oneness of existence. The problem we face on this planet is the belief in multiple entities. We live in a world of duality, masculine and feminine, black and white, big and small, fast and slow, up and down, full and empty, before and after. But in reality, there is only one thing. All of these are parts of a single whole. When we look closely, we see that big and small, fast and slow, up and down, left and right, male and female are simply different reflections, not separate entities. I believe that we are all individual expressions of the divine, that God exists in everyone and manifests through everyone, through every being in the universe. I see my relationship with God as that of a wave to the ocean. A wave is nothing apart from the ocean. It is simply the ocean manifesting in an individual form. When this process of separation completes, the wave returns to the ocean from which it came and will reappear on another day. So, I believe we are all individual expressions of the divine. When we see everything as sacred, we recognize that all life is part of this oneness. This perspective transforms our understanding, showing that there is no true separation, only the diverse, beautiful forms of the same divine source. We will change our attitude and see everything differently. This is how the world changes. What is consciousness? Consciousness is the true essence of the universe. If consciousness is the true essence of the universe and everything and everyone, then why does the world appear to us as a vast diversity of independent beings, animals, and objects made of a type of matter we call material? How can we reconcile the idea that consciousness is the true nature of the universe when it appears to us as a variety of material objects? The evidence I use to suggest that consciousness is fundamental has multiple aspects. One is that physics itself suggests that space-time is not a fundamental reality, and the theory of evolution also aligns, stating that space-time and material objects are not fundamental reality. Both theories simply state that space-time is not a foundational reality, but say nothing about what lies beyond it. My argument is that physicists are searching for mathematical structures that go beyond space-time, though what they truly are remains unclear. What exists beyond space-time? I believe that the realm beyond space-time is related to consciousness. Infinite consciousness has the capacity to localize itself in various individual experiences, that is, all beings, humans, and animals alike. Each of us is a localization of infinite consciousness, within a boundless consciousness that comprises only infinite awareness. From a personal perspective, consciousness sees its own activity as the external world. Therefore, what appears to us as a world filled with material objects is, from a true perspective, the activity of a single infinite consciousness. In other words, ultimately, there are no separate or independent beings or objects. There is an indivisible infinite entity. The total unity of existence is reflected in the apparent diversity of objects and beings. If we awaken, we realize that there is a singular consciousness masquerading as all the different beings on this planet. A single consciousness shines in everyone's eyes. When we see ourselves in others, the desire to act out of selfish motives disappears, because we directly perceive the truth. We are all one consciousness. Experiencing our spiritual essence through materiality. Our spiritual nature can only be fully experienced in the physical world for a very important reason. The opposite is available to us. For instance, if I want to experience myself as light, I cannot do so if I am surrounded solely by light. Nothing but light would exist around me, making it impossible to experience myself as such. This is a beautiful metaphor for the spiritual realm. Thus, I must come into the material realm, where there is something different, something that is not light. If I wish to experience myself as light, not just to know myself as light, but to truly experience it, I can only do so where there is a contrast, in this case, darkness. So I bring myself into the physical world, where light and darkness coexist. Then, in my external manifestation as light, I can truly be myself, and understand that beyond our differences, we are all the same. This sameness doesn't mean we are the exact same being. Rather, it is the experience of unity, of togetherness. Love is the experience of this unity. A principle in this theory states that ultimately, there is only one consciousness. While we seem to be countless conscious agents, this theory tells us that all these conscious agents are merely projections of a single consciousness. For centuries, modern science has suggested that space and time are fundamental to reality, irreducible and foundational to everything. But if we look deeper, we see that this foundation might lie within consciousness itself, connecting us all as one boundless, infinite being, manifesting as many. Even before Einstein, space and time were viewed separately. Now, space and time have been combined into space-time, considered the fundamental essence of reality. Science has suggested that space-time and the objects within it are the foundation of reality. Therefore, when we speak about consciousness, consciousness itself must somehow be a product of objects in space and time within this physical system. Space-time and material objects, lacking any consciousness, are the basis of reality, and consciousness appeared much later in the evolution of the universe. According to this view, at the moment of the Big Bang, there was no consciousness, only space-time and energy. Energy condensed into particles, and life eventually emerged after millions or billions of years. Consciousness appeared even later. From this perspective, when you die, the physical entity that gives rise to consciousness disintegrates, and thus your consciousness also fades away. This approach essentially dismisses consciousness as a fundamental aspect, suggesting that consciousness disappears when the body dies. However, my colleagues and I have used evolutionary theory to argue that space and time are not fundamental. Therefore, the traditional evolutionary explanation that space, time, and particles somehow evolved through the human body is inaccurate. We argue that something exists beyond space-time, the activity of consciousness. We do not abandon older theories. When physicists suggest that space-time will cease to be the fundamental framework, it does not mean we disregard Einstein. Far from it. Any new theory that goes beyond space-time must improve upon it and reintroduce Einstein's ideas in a way that integrates better with quantum theory. All old theories are valuable friends, seen as special cases within a deeper theory. Similarly, in theories of consciousness, we proceed the same way. We need a theory of consciousness that includes and encapsulates space-time, quantum theory, general and special relativity, and evolution through natural selection. If we cannot express this with mathematical precision, there is no reason for scientists to take consciousness theories seriously. Consciousness and the illusion of reality. Think of infinite consciousness as wearing a virtual reality headset. This headset consists of thoughts and perceptions, and through wearing it, consciousness self-modulates its activity. Through this headset, it views the world externally through the senses of the limited mind, seeing, hearing, touching, tasting, and smelling. This process disrupts its inherent unity and makes it appear as if there are thousands of different things. In my view, the universe is far more than our limited intelligence perceives. I am not suggesting that the universe only exists in our minds. The universe exists outside our finite minds, but within consciousness. It is the limitations of our finite minds that give the universe its tangible expression. When we observe the universe, we encounter a reality that existed before we perceived it. We see it through the lens of our perception capabilities, giving it this appearance. Many spiritual traditions propose that what we perceive, the objects in space-time, our physical bodies and so on, is not the ultimate reality. There is a deeper reality, a reality of consciousness that transcends space, time, and material objects. Awakening, realizing our true nature. We are not separate from this deeper reality. In a sense, this reality is our essence. Awakening means dispelling the illusion that we are merely small bodies in space and time. It is a realization that, in truth, we are the source of everything we see in space and time. We create it instantly as we perceive and interact with it. This shift in perception reveals the profound connection between ourselves and the universe, awakening us to our role as active participants in reality, rather than as mere observers. Is nirvana the same as heaven? Welcome back, everyone, to Mind Podcast. What is the purpose of your existence in this life? Where does your true value lie? What to you is true peace and happiness? I believe that many people are still struggling, caught up in these questions. I personally am one of them. Sometimes I ask myself what my true purpose is in this short life, constantly entangled in the demands of food, clothing, and shelter, then aging, getting sick, and eventually dying. It wasn't until I learned about nirvana, a concept that has saved the lives of many, that I began to find some answers. Today, let us explore nirvana to address the boundless questions in our lives. Before we begin the video, we would like to introduce the channel that produces videos for our loyal members. Please subscribe as directed to learn more about the mysteries of religion. Once King Milinda met the Venerable Nagasena and asked him, "Is nirvana visible or tangible?" "No, it has no visible form or substance. It does not arise from the four great elements. It has no size, area, place, or location," replied Nagasena. "Does it have any parts or details?" "No, it does not." "Can it be measured or estimated in any way?" "No, it cannot." "Can you provide an example?" No example can fully encompass nirvana. Does nirvana have a cause then? No, it has no cause. Does it rely on any condition? No, it does not. Is there any way to verify or describe it concretely? No, there is no concrete way to explain it for everyone to understand easily, Nagasena replied. But is there any specific analogy that could at least hint at nirvana? Yes, while there are examples that may offer a glimpse of nirvana, these do not represent nirvana itself. Oh, that is quite interesting. People speak of the vast ocean. "Has your eminence seen the great ocean?" asked the king. "Yes, I have." "And does it truly exist?" "Yes, it does." "So since you have seen the great ocean and confirmed its existence, may I ask how wide, long, and deep it is, how much water it contains, how many fish there are, and the quantity of each type?" "No one can answer that," replied the king. "Why not? The ocean is real, the water is real, the fish are real. Why won't your majesty answer, or have you never seen the ocean?" "Oh, I have seen it, but as for its length, width, depth, and the number of fish, I do not know. I lack knowledge in marine studies, and any answer I give would be inaccurate. The ocean is something real and tangible." The king has seen the ocean with his own eyes, yet he cannot estimate its length, width, or depth, nor the number of fish. And yet, the king asks me to measure, estimate, and describe the components and details of nirvana, a transcendent reality. Suppose someone possessed supernatural powers, profound knowledge, and perfect memory to measure the length, width, and depth of the water and fish in the great ocean. Even then, they could not speak of nirvana. Why? Because nirvana lies beyond all measurement, cause, and comparison. In the Milindapana, King Milinda asked the venerable Nagasena about nirvana. He said, "There is no direction, west, south, east, north, above, below, or outward, where one can say that nirvana exists. Yet nirvana truly exists, and anyone who lives a virtuous life with mindfulness, wisdom, and focus, whether in Greece, China, Alexandria, or Kosala, can attain nirvana. Just as fire does not reside in any particular place, but arises when conditions are right, so too is nirvana attained when the path is complete." During the Buddha's time, some ascetics and Brahmins claimed that there were 5 types of nirvana they considered ultimate. The first belief was that enjoying the 5 sensual pleasures to the fullest constituted nirvana. The second was the belief that detachment from sensual pleasures and unwholesome practices, reaching the first level of meditative absorption, with initial thought, sustained thought, joy, and happiness, was nirvana. The third view was that reaching the second, D level of meditative absorption, with inner tranquility, one-pointed concentration, and joy, constituted nirvana. The fourth was that attaining the third level of meditation, characterized by happiness and mindfulness, was nirvana. The fifth view was that the fourth level of meditation, in which one experiences neither joy nor sorrow and is free from false views, constituted nirvana. The Buddha understood these viewpoints but did not cling to them, as he was free from attachment to any particular view. His mind was peaceful, allowing him to understand the cultivation, cessation, pleasure, danger, and detachment from sensations thoroughly. With this understanding, the Buddha was fully liberated, free from the cycles of birth and death. In the Prajnaparamita Sutras, nirvana is described with 8 qualities. 1. Eternal, permeating past, present, and future, enduring throughout time and space. 2. Silent, completely at peace, ending all cycles of birth and death. 3. Unchanging, neither aging nor altering, adding or diminishing. 4. Deathless, neither born nor dying, beyond the cycle of life and death. 5. Pure, free from all defilements and pollution. 6. Vast as space, open and boundless, surpassing all obstacles. 7. Unmoving, absolutely still, with no disturbance. 8. Blissful, free from the suffering of birth and death, filled with perpetual happiness and peace. The Buddha elaborated on the nature of nirvana in many sutras. In the Udana, the Buddha addressed the monks, describing nirvana as a state without earth, water, fire, wind, infinite space, infinite consciousness, nothingness, or perception. There is neither this world nor another world. Therefore, he declared that nirvana has no coming, no going, no arising, no ceasing, no movement, and no basis. It is the cessation of all suffering. Monks, whatever depends on something is subject to movement. Whatever does not depend on anything is unmoving. That which is unmoving is serene, and serenity brings stability. Stability has neither coming nor going, neither birth nor death. Because there is no birth or death, there is no present life or future life. This is the complete cessation of suffering. Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh said, "Birth is the notion of becoming something from nothing, and death is the notion of becoming nothing from something. What neither comes nor goes, neither arises nor ceases, neither increases nor decreases, that is nirvana." Thus, saying nirvana exists or does not exist is absurd. To say nirvana exists is incorrect, and to say it doesn't exist is also incorrect, because the concepts of existence and non-existence do not apply to nirvana. Saying, "I don't know if nirvana exists, so I won't practice," is a foolish notion. Bringing concepts of existence or non-existence to search for nirvana means that one will never find it. In the Lotus Sutra, there are the concepts of provisional gate, Tathagata Garbha, and true gate, Dharmakaya. From the perspective of the provisional gate, we see arising and ceasing, with waves that rise and fall, exist and vanish. But from the perspective of the true gate, like the essence of water, concepts such as arising, ceasing, this wave, that wave, high or low, no longer exist. Imagine a wave feeling fear, worry, suffering, and jealousy, searching for a place of peace. Someone tells it, "What you're looking for is water." When you realize you are water, you will no longer worry about rising, falling, big or small, beautiful or ugly. This is only an analogy, a finger pointing to the moon. Nirvana is like water, both manifest and unmanifest, just as waves and water are one. In reality, a wave doesn't need to look for water because it already is water. Similarly, nirvana is our true nature, unborn, undying, without coming or going. We are already within nirvana. Nirvana is not something to search for. Wondering whether nirvana exists or not, or seeking to attain it, is a mistaken understanding. That notion is as naive as a wave searching for water. The wave is already water, so there is no need to seek it. This is what is meant by attaining non-attainment. In the sutras it is said, realize the non-realization, attain the non-attainment. Imagine a kaleidoscope. Within it, colored paper pieces form intricate patterns with every shake. One shake creates one beautiful pattern, another shake creates a different one. A child is fascinated by these patterns, feeling no regret over one disappearing because a new one takes its place. Each pattern appears distinct, but all are created by the same pieces of paper. The colored pieces represent the true gate, while the patterns represent the provisional gate. Recognizing, that all arises from the true gate, the arising and ceasing of forms in the provisional gate no longer disturb us. A cloud seeking to be water doesn't need to search because it is already water by nature. When a cloud encounters cold air, it becomes snow. Though it no longer resembles a cloud, it is still water. When a cloud becomes rain or ice, it is still the same water. These analogies are given to help us understand, not to get attached to them. The Blessed One used many analogies in his teachings. For those who are insightful, these analogies point to the truth, but for others, they may become stuck in the analogies themselves. When a cloud realizes it is water, it no longer fears anything. It is happy as a cloud, as rain, as snow, or as ice. Similarly, humans experience worry, fear, prejudice, and jealousy because we do not recognize or realize our true nature. I am nirvana. If we can connect with the reality of ourselves called nirvana, a reality that is neither born nor dying, neither coming nor going, neither permanent nor transient, then all of our fears, sorrows, and jealousies disappear. This is something we can achieve. An enlightened one is awakened and sees that our foundation is nirvana. Thus, they experience joy, whether they rise or fall, come or go. An enlightened person is described as one who is free from concepts like existence and non-existence, gain and loss, arrival and departure. Scholars now translate nirvana as freedom. In the past, people translated nirvana as extinction, the extinguishing of notions such as attainment and failure, coming and going, permanence and impermanence, birth and death. Today we interpret nirvana as freedom from concepts. When those concepts no longer disturb or cause us suffering, that is freedom, that is nirvana. Nirvana is not something we achieve only after the body disintegrates and dies. Nirvana is available here and now, called present nirvana. A Christian might say, I am God and God is me. God is my unborn, undying foundation. I do not need to search for God is my ultimate reality. Only waves that know they are water can play and laugh freely. When they reach the shore, they smile. Only those who have attained nirvana can smile at their last breath, while others in that situation are overwhelmed with worry and fear. The beauty and miracle of a practitioner is in realizing nirvana. Nirvana is not something external to chase after. It is our true self, present within every cell of our body. The foundation of all things is nirvana. Imagine someone searching for space, running east, west, south, north, climbing up and down, trying to find space, unaware that they are already in it, that everywhere is space. We are like this too. We seek nirvana in the past, in the future, in the east, in the west, when in truth we are already in nirvana. This is called present nirvana. Only by awakening can we see this. Therefore, Buddhism is called the path of awakening. To awaken is to realize nirvana without the need to search. Observing life deeply, we naturally connect with nirvana. A scientist who has never studied Buddhism once said, "Nothing is born and nothing dies." This was the French scientist Antoine Lavoisier. The essence of things is neither birth nor death. If people like this delve deeper, they are sure to attain freedom. What is the route that leads us through the cycle of birth and death, and what leads us to nirvana and liberation? The Surangama Sutra explains this very clearly. One day, Venerable Ananda asked the Buddha, "Blessed One, what is the root of birth and death, and what is the root of enlightenment and nirvana?" The Buddha did not immediately answer. After a moment, voices from all directions filled the sky, as Buddhas from the 10 directions responded together. "Ananda, the root of birth and death is your 6 sense faculties, and the root of enlightenment and nirvana is also your 6 sense faculties." The 6 sense faculties, eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind, are both the root of the endless cycle of birth and death, and the root of enlightenment and nirvana. Why? How we use the 6 sense faculties determines whether we are liberated from birth and death or remain trapped within it. When the eyes chase after forms, they cling to them, and thus we are pulled along. The ears hear sounds, the nose smells scents, and the tongue tastes flavors in the same way. For example, when the tongue tastes delicious food, we feel enjoyment, but if the food is not tasty, we feel irritation. Instead of eating to live, we eat to fuel our desires and frustrations, because not every meal will satisfy our palate. When we enjoy the taste, we crave more. This is attachment. When we dislike it, we feel frustrated. This is aversion, which leads to suffering. And suffering is the root of our continuous cycle of birth and death. If we look closely, we see that the delicious or disgusting qualities of food are not inherently real. When the stomach is empty, everything tastes good. When it's full, even the most luxurious food becomes unappealing. The value of taste is illusory, but we forget this and are led by the tongue's demands, following it endlessly. The same applies to the nose, eyes, ears, and the body's sensory experiences. The need to satisfy bodily desires drives some people to work their entire lives without rest. Many people lament their hard lives, working endlessly without a break. Who is it that causes this suffering? It is the demands of our own eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind. Thus, those who know how to practice live a balanced life without being bound by these things, naturally finding peace. If we eat simply to sustain ourselves, any food will do as long as it fills our stomach. If we dress simply to cover our body, any clothing will do as long as it is intact. This body, whether beautiful or ugly, will die in a few decades. Is it worth satisfying all its desires only to face death in the end? The body is not real, and happiness is not real either. Due to our delusions, we mistakenly think they are real and are thus trapped in the cycle of birth and death. For a person who knows how to practice, the 6 sense faculties encountering the 6 sense objects, forms, sounds, scents, tastes, tactile sensations, and thoughts will remain undisturbed and unbound. This is the root of enlightenment and nirvana. Form refers to attractive or unattractive appearances, sounds to pleasing or displeasing noises, scents to fragrant or foul smells, tastes to delicious or bland, flavors, and touch to bodily sensations. The Dharma consists of the impressions that arise within the mind when the 6 senses interact with the 6 sense objects. When there is attachment and entanglement in these interactions, it leads to the cycle of birth and death. However, when there is no attachment or entanglement, that is enlightenment and nirvana. For example, take someone who enjoys drinking. At first, they casually drink 1 cup, then 2, then 3, and over time, they become addicted. Initially, drinking was a choice. They had the freedom to drink or not. But once they become addicted, they can't go without alcohol, running to the bar to get it. What drives them? It's the addiction, a habit formed through repetition, which has now become dependency, taking away their freedom. They created this attachment, and now they have lost their freedom. If they hadn't created it, they wouldn't have lost their freedom. Freedom is the seed of liberation, while being led by attachments is the root of the cycle of suffering. We should examine ourselves to see if we are preparing to ascend or being pulled down. Being pulled down brings suffering, while liberation brings ease. If we are controlled by desires and cannot master ourselves, then we know we are being pulled down. If we can remain unattached to things that others are enticed by, then we are ascending. In practice, there is no need to ask others. Many Buddhists ask their teachers, "Master, do I have the potential to practice?" The teacher often replies that everyone has the potential, as it is only a matter of whether one wishes to practice or not. Why does everyone have the potential? Because the Buddha said that everyone has Buddha nature, which is the root of the capacity to practice. If we are willing to practice, we can. If we are not, we cannot. We don't need to ask anyone else. Reflect on whether our minds are ever purely good or purely bad. Sometimes we think good thoughts, sometimes bad. Thus, our minds contain both good and evil. To practice means to abandon evil and nurture goodness. That's all. Having goodness within is already the capacity to practice, so there is no need to ask further. Some people consult dates, months, and years to see if they are suitable for spiritual practice, or they wait for auspicious days to join the monastic life. To me, the day one begins to practice is a good day, and any day spent in wrongdoing is a bad day. We all have the six sense faculties, which means we all possess the root of enlightenment and nirvana, as well as the root of the cycle of suffering and death. As long as the six senses are not attached to the six sense objects, there is liberation. Otherwise, there is suffering. When we look deeply, we realize that practice isn't something in the distant heavens, but lies within our true selves. Someone who does Nyan, chant sutras, or follow a vegetarian diet, yet remains unattached to beauty, unmoved by pleasant sounds, unfazed by praise, and untroubled by criticism, is practicing. On the other hand, someone who chants sutras and follows a strict diet but is entangled in sights, sounds, and other sensory experiences has not yet learned to practice. Practice is about skillfully freeing oneself, not binding or entangling. Thank you for watching.
Only Buddhism can answer all the questions of the universe? Buddhism and science are two concepts that may seem unrelated or even contradictory. However, in reality, they share a close, undeniable relationship. The deeper I delve into Buddhism, the more I realize how small and insignificant I am, to the point where I see myself as nothing but emptiness. As modern science continues to advance, we now have the tools to reach beyond the edges of the universe. This is also when humanity realizes that we are much smaller than we ever imagined. At that moment, we also realize that only Buddhism can provide answers to all the questions of the universe. I believe that, in the future, the teachings of the Buddha will be the ultimate destination for all scientific research. More than 2,000 years ago, while Western philosophy was heavily influenced by gods and deities, in the East, specifically in India, a brilliant civilization was flourishing. To this day, archaeologists and scientists have yet to fully uncover the depths and breadth of this civilization's knowledge, particularly its insights into the universe and the world, which remain astonishingly accurate. In the Buddhist scriptures, a religion considered atheistic, we find answers. Indeed, Buddhism emerged around the 6th century BCE in a society marked by extreme social division in India, where Brahmanism reigned supreme. Shakyamuni Buddha and his disciples, within just a few hundred years, developed an entirely new system of thought. They left behind a vast collection of scriptures filled with immense knowledge, from which countless insights into the world and the universe can be drawn, knowledge that still holds great value today. When we think of religion, we often cannot avoid being influenced by images of gods or supernatural forces, things that seem distant or even superstitious. Setting aside religious debates for now, when we examine and consult Buddhist scriptures, we can derive many valuable perspectives on the world and humanity, as well as scientific methods of analysis that have been used. Although the scriptures primarily focus on teaching methods for escaping suffering, we can still find plenty of Buddhist arguments and perspectives regarding the physical nature of the world and the universe. One of the oldest and most difficult questions in both physics and philosophy is, how did the universe come to be, and how does it evolve? To this day, there are numerous answers steeped in divine power and theories based on belief in a creator. claiming that an omnipotent force created the universe. Yet Buddhism, a religion over 2,500 years old, breaks away from rigid doctrines and establishes an entirely atheistic system of thought regarding the nature of existence. According to Buddhist scriptures, all things, whether living beings or material objects, are subject to impersonal laws and influences that act impartially upon them. Humans have made new scientific discoveries, and when these new discoveries cannot be explained by existing scientific theories, new hypotheses are proposed to address the issues uncovered. Some scientific hypotheses, once widely accepted, must meet three conditions. 1. Consistency. The theoretical system must be self-explanatory and free of contradictions. 2. Accuracy. It must be able to accurately describe known findings, meaning the hypothesis can be refined and aligned with scientific experiments. 3. Predictive power. From this hypothesis, certain inferences and predictions can be drawn, and these predictions can be verified by future experiences and observations. As more inferences and predictions are made, these hypotheses are increasingly accepted by the scientific community, and such hypotheses are then called scientific theories. If the theory explains and guides a wide range of impactful phenomena, it is considered a grand scientific theory. For example, Newtonian mechanics and Einstein's theory of relativity. Newtonian mechanics applies to all macroscopic objects and follows its laws as long as we are not approaching the speed of light. The theory of relativity can describe the low-speed motion of all macroscopic objects as well as the laws governing motion when approaching the speed of light. When these two theories were proposed, they provided explanations for problems that had previously been unsolvable. Older scientific theories could no longer address these issues, and predictions made based on these theories were later confirmed by numerous scientific observations. The theory of relativity is a generalization of Newtonian mechanics, and Newtonian mechanics is a special case of relativity at low speeds. Since the scope of these two theories is vast, Newton and Einstein are recognized as some of the greatest scientists in history, and their theories are considered grand scientific theories. Launching satellites into space, running submarines underwater, competing in sports, and observing astronomy all must adhere to the constraints of the laws described by these two theories. Similarly, Buddhism also contains the essential characteristics of a scientific theory. First, Buddhist theory is self-consistent and harmonious. The Four Noble Truths summarize the many phenomena of suffering in human life, identify the causes of suffering, and provide a theoretical basis along with practical methods to transform the body and mind. Second, after the Buddha attained enlightenment, he laid down the basic principles of the universe and human existence. There are many social and human phenomena, and more importantly, many people listen to the Buddha's teachings for their practice. Many have experienced different realms as described in Buddhist teachings. Therefore, Buddhism has gained widespread support and has had a profound influence. If I were to emphasize the experiential nature of Buddhism, I would say that those who follow the Buddha's guidance and practice according to the precepts can, to varying degrees, affirm and verify that the Buddha's words are true. Buddhism is not merely a theoretical philosophy, but a practical, experiential science with great applicability, although it also encompasses profound philosophical ideas. Practicing Buddhism according to its teachings is what we call studying Buddhism. Thirdly, certain natural phenomena described in Buddhism are direct observations made by those with corresponding spiritual abilities. However, for ordinary people, these observations can only be explored through the lens of modern natural science. These are the scientific predictions made by great minds. The Buddha said, over 2,500 years ago, that there are 84,000 microbes in a bowl of water, and that there are 3,000 great thousand worlds in the structure of the universe. Today, microbiologists and cosmologists have confirmed that these statements are scientifically grounded. Some people now, due to their lack of understanding of Buddhism, accuse it of being superstitious and unscientific. In reality, some of these individuals do not fully understand science either. They hold a superstitious attitude towards science and lack the genuine spirit of scientific inquiry. The 6 realms of samsara and the law of karma in Buddhism are often criticized as being superstitious. These critics argue that if someone commits evil, yet no bad karma seems to manifest, or if someone does good deeds but does not receive positive karma, then karma must be false. However, these people fail to understand that karma only ripens when the conditions are right, and only then does one experience the effects of their past actions. Secondly, why can no one see the karmic cycle of rebirth? The truth is that since Buddhism emerged over 2,500 years ago, its history and scriptures have been recorded by many practitioners who have attained spiritual abilities and can see the workings of karma and reincarnation. In our daily lives, there are many invisible things that the naked eye cannot perceive. Just because we cannot see them does not mean they do not exist. Our eyes cannot detect infrared or ultraviolet rays. We cannot hear ultrasonic or supersonic waves. Our eyes cannot see bacteria or microscopic particles like atoms. We cannot see or hear many signals that are constantly around us, such as radio waves, television signals, and mobile phone signals, along with many other things that science has yet to discover, but that still exist in the vast universe. We can see sunlight, but we may not realize that this light has both wave and particle properties. Nonetheless, we deeply believe in these scientific truths without doubt, because modern natural science has been widely accepted and proven. The spirit of scientific inquiry lies in the fact that science does not dismiss something simply because it has not been proven, nor does it disregard verification. Just because you have not observed or tested something does not mean it does not exist, or that it should be considered superstitious. If we wish to understand the scientific laws and phenomena that our senses cannot detect, we must earnestly study and research under the guidance of knowledgeable experts in the field of science. From elementary school to the completion of a PhD, you gradually learn about scientific theories, conduct and observe many scientific experiments, and simultaneously use scientific research tools to gain a clearer understanding of various scientific phenomena. If a person has never studied scientific research, or does not understand natural phenomena and the laws governing them, yet goes on to criticize and accuse such scientific phenomena and laws of being superstitious, this would indeed be quite laughable. Similarly, the truths introduced by Buddhism should not be criticized as superstition simply because you have not studied the Dharma or experienced spiritual practice. Buddhism is about true faith, not blind faith, and it is the belief of wise individuals. Historical figures from India and China, across many generations, have demonstrated this. Science is the application of human intelligence, and Buddhism helps people eliminate delusion in order to fully manifest the wisdom of sentient beings. Therefore, there is no conflict between science and Buddhism, not even in the slightest. The scientific nature of Buddhism and a proper understanding of Buddhism start here. There are many Buddhist scriptures whose arguments align astonishingly well with modern science. On a grand scale, they talk about the formation of the universe, the structure of the solar system, and the Milky Way galaxy. On a smaller scale, they describe the life of parasites and microorganisms. Even advanced scientific theories, such as relativity and quantum mechanics, confirm the truth of Buddhism. Here are some examples that demonstrate how the Buddha accurately described the state of our universe in the Agnya Sutta, Genesis Sutta. The small thousand-world system is described as being like a woven net or a round tray with a spiral shape inside. This is precisely the shape of the Milky Way galaxy. Additionally, it points out that the Milky Way contains many stars, some of which are inhabited by beings. The three-dimensional space corresponds to the 3,000 Great Thousand-World System, which is the entire starry sky of the universe that we observe today. In this system of 3,000 Great Thousand Worlds, there are countless worlds, what we now call the universe, that humans have observed. So far, scientific observations have not surpassed what the Buddhist scriptures refer to as the 3,000 Great Thousand Worlds. The Agnya also mentions that in our small thousand-world system, that is, the Milky Way, there are 4 large continents: Jambudvipa, Purvavideha, Aparagoniya, and Uttarakuru. Our Earth belongs to one of these large continents, Jambudvipa. The other 3 large continents may refer to alien worlds or planets with other forms of life within the Milky Way. The Buddha described them in detail, including their facial features, lifespan, and living conditions. Beyond the 4 large continents, there are also 80,000 smaller continents, planets that have not yet evolved to the level of higher planets. According to the Shurangama Sutra, one of the Buddha's disciples, Aniruddha, who was blind, attained the state of Arhat. After opening his divine eye, he was able to see Jambudvipa, the earth, as if it were an amla fruit in the palm of his hand, a type of oval-shaped fruit found in India. If one had not truly practiced and attained enlightenment, how could it have been known over 2,500 years ago that the earth was round? The Abhidharmakosha describes the circle of earth based on the circle of water. The circle of water is based on the circle of wind, and the circle of wind is based on the circle of space. This shows that the earth is round, with most of its surface covered by water. Beyond the water is the atmosphere, and beyond the atmosphere is space. It also precisely explains the causes of the moon's waxing and waning phases. In the Aganya Sutta, the Buddha accurately pointed out the reason for the moon's phases, when it is full, waxing, or waning. Specifically, on the 30th day of the lunar calendar, the moon is darkest and closest to the sun, covered by sunlight, which is why it does not appear. Additionally, Shakyamuni Buddha once pointed to a cup of water and said, "In this cup of water there are 84,000 living beings." The number 84,000 is symbolic, meaning a very large number. Without the use of a microscope, the Buddha was able to observe the countless living organisms in water. For this reason, he instructed his disciples to filter water before drinking it in order to minimize harm to these microorganisms. Shakyamuni Buddha also once said that the human body is full of microorganisms and even identified their locations and how they function. Today, thanks to scientific advancements, we have discovered various parasites in the human body, including over 10 types of worms, such as roundworms, pinworms, hookworms, filarial worms, tapeworms, lung flukes, and liver flukes. Some may ask, more than 2,500 years ago, without any modern scientific tools, how could one have such deep knowledge about the macrocosm, like the universe, and the microcosm, such as parasites? In fact, all of this understanding is within the mind's awareness. Through deep meditation and enlightenment, one can come to know everything about the universe. We have every reason to believe that from now until 5 billion years of scientific research, our understanding of the nature of the universe will still not compare to the knowledge of the Buddha. The Shurangama Sutra states that all causes and effects in the universe arise from the mind. Another significant and long-standing question in the field of physics is about the composition of matter. It wasn't until the late 20th century that people finally had a clearer answer, based on Einstein's equation E equals mc squared. The philosophical implication of this equation is the affirmation that matter is simply a form of concentrated energy. In Buddhist teachings, matter is initially categorized into 4 elements. 1. Earth, representing solid matter. 2. Water, representing liquid matter. 3. Wind, representing gaseous matter. Fire, fat, representing pure transformative energy. These forms of matter are not eternal and can be transformed according to the law of impermanence. According to the Buddhist concept of non-duality, these forms are essentially empty, shunyata, and this emptiness is universal to all things. In Buddhist meditation, this means that all things have Buddha nature, meaning that everything inherently contains the nature of truth. To help you better understand, we can compare this explanation with modern physics, which suggests that all matter, regardless of form, can be described as energy. Even more noteworthy is the description of the state of the universe in the Prajnaparamita Heart Sutra, which states, "Form is emptiness, and emptiness is form. Emptiness is not different from form. Form is not different from emptiness." This means that all phenomena are essentially empty. They do not come into being, do not cease, are neither pure nor impure, neither increase nor decrease. So, what do you think about this idea, if we relate it to the law of conservation of energy in the universe that physicists have been advocating? Thousands of years ago, Buddhism introduced the concept related to denying the existence of human perceptions of matter, known as emptiness, shunyata. According to this notion, all perceptions of matter are inaccurate. For example, consider the 2 most important concepts, form and appearance. Form refers to the physical attributes or colors of matter that we perceive, while appearance refers to the shape of matter. Why then would Buddhism deny these two attributes? Today, we know that color is simply a perception of the eyes responding to various wavelengths of light, and it is largely a psychological attribute. For instance, two different species can perceive color differently depending on their biological makeup and experiences. Similarly, the spatial structure of matter is composed of countless fundamental particles. Depending on an individual's perception abilities, how one sees and understands that matter will also differ. If we observe a strand of hair under an electron microscope, our perception of its shape would be entirely different. It might appear far less pleasant than our initial observation. Thus, we cannot rely on the attributes of form and appearance to claim the absolute truth of matter as we perceive it. The same principle applies to sound, sensation, and cognition. Furthermore, in Buddhism, the denial of everything is meant to educate and teach that all perceptions, interpretations, opinions, understanding, or actions are derived from one's own mind. These arise from one's instincts, experiences, and the environmental conditions that influence them. The Buddha referred to this as, all phenomena are created by the mind. With this in mind, I hope you now have a deeper understanding of the essence of Buddhism. Always keep an open mind and a beautiful spirit as you follow our future videos. See you in the next one.